Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday, July 18th edition of the Rebels247 Round Table. I'm David Johnson, along with Webb Lewis and Brandon Red. Guys, an interesting scenario started to take shape earlier this week and kind of spread like wildfire. Rumors out there that perhaps 2014 offensive lineman Andy Bauer out of St. Louis, Missouri, was contemplating flipping from Ole Miss to the Arkansas Razorbacks. Even 247 Sports national analyst J.C. Sherbert crystal balled Bauer to Arkansas on Tuesday. Of course, Andy Bauer has been a longtime Ole Miss commit, and it's kind of interesting how rumors and innuendo and speculation can create such a firestorm.
Anytime, and we've talked about this, David, anytime in recruiting, until that name is on that paper, you're going to hear a lot of these things. And with Bauer's case, you hear this influx of everybody saying, well, he's going to Arkansas, without even the kid saying it himself that he is attending Arkansas or that he'll be at Arkansas. It's amazing to me, Webb, too, that how many rumors go around during these recruiting eras where people just say certain things, but they're not necessarily true.
I agree, and to add it, make it a little bit more crazy is the rumors always pick up in December and January. But here we are in July, and one of the Rebels' top commits for this class. There's rumors buzzing, but I think it should be noted Bauer doesn't talk to anybody with the exception of Rebels 247 when it comes to media. So I mean, speculation. That's all it is.
I spoke with Andy yesterday, actually twice via social media, and then we had a long half-hour telephone conversation yesterday evening, yesterday being Wednesday, and he set the record straight. Number one, yeah, he was aware that there were rumors out there regarding the possibility of him flipping to Arkansas. Number two, he had no idea where those rumors started or how they started or who were behind those rumors. But number three is nothing to it whatsoever. Andy Bauer is a high character guy. When he tells you something, you can take it to the bank, and Andy definitively put all rumors to rest yesterday. He is not about to flip. He is 100% solid on his commitment to the Ole Miss Rebels. He plans no more summer visits and says likely his only official visit will be to Ole Miss in December. He spent the summer preparing himself academically to graduate early in December and enroll in Ole Miss in January. Andy Bauer is not about to flip.
Absolutely not. And the quote that he gave you that I think says it all, they can think whatever they want to think. Ole Miss is where my heart is, and Ole Miss is where I'm going to play college football. That's it. That says it all right there, in my opinion.
And when you look at Bauer and the type player Ole Miss is getting, guys, I mean, just a great tackle, strong guy, great in the run blocking schemes. I mean, just how much of an impact could he make on next year's or 2 years from now Ole Miss's football team?
Yeah, an absolute tremendous impact, and possibly with him being on campus in January and going through spring practice, Andy Bauer's the kind of kid, he's going to pick everything up very, very quickly. He's certainly very talented, could find himself on the field, one of those rare true freshmen that has the opportunity to play on the offensive line that early in their career.
You don't see it very often. There's question about Laramie Tunsil making that push. I honestly don't see that happening, especially not from week one.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
There may be some spots this year where Laramie Tunsil gets some playing time, but just looking at him over the summer, I don't know if Laramie Tunsil will be ready to play this fall.
I look back at Michael Orr's freshman season at Ole Miss getting kind of thrown into the mix, and honestly, as talented as Michael is, not knowing the offense and not understanding the offense fully can get a lot of people hurt when you're locking down a tackle position. So,
and then you look at the physicality of the position, in the trenches against some of the best defensive linemen in the country. In the SEC, you go week in and week out against some of the most athletic, most aggressive, strongest defensive linemen in the country. And as a true freshman coming in, it's got to be tough.
I mentioned when Andy called me yesterday, we talked for about a half hour. 5 minutes of that was about his recruitment. The other 25 minutes, he wanted to know where the best restaurants were in Oxford, where he could get big extra large burritos in Oxford, Mississippi. If that tells you anything about Andy Bauer's mindset, Andy Bauer has a strong relationship with offensive line coach Matt Luke as well as head coach Hugh Freeze. He and Coach Luke talk every single day. He and Coach Freeze talk a couple of times a week, according to Andy. And then he's forged some very strong relationships with some guys already on this team. Center Evan Swindle, Ben Steele, another offensive lineman, and Austin Golson.
As a big guy myself, whenever you're looking for good places to eat, it's usually a good sign for Ole Miss fans.
Well, we're going to stop right there and let Red define what he means by big guy, because he's actually about, how tall are you, 5'6"?
Well, let's give him a 5'7" radio.
So kind of rotund.
Right.
I got you. I understand. Not in the 6'5", 300-pound range.
But I know how to eat.
We all do.
Yes, we do.
Everyone sitting at this round table can definitely eat.
Yes.
All right, let's switch gears now. SEC Media Days this week. All the coaches have stepped in front of the podium at the circus in Birmingham. And, you know, the thing of it is you get a few snide remarks over there every single year, Steve Spurrier. And but other than that, there's not a whole lot of information that comes out of it. It's a dog and pony show. There's no doubt about it. But you do get the preseason predictions and the preseason all-conference teams and all of that. And Ole Miss picked to finish fourth in the SEC West this year. Alabama picked to finish number 1, A&M number 2, LSU 3, Ole Miss number 4, number 5, Auburn 6, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Brett Bielema picked to bring up the rear this year, guys. What do you think about how the SEC West was picked by the lead coaches?
Well, I mean, Bama being number 1 is I think anybody's going to go with that. Interested in the 2 and 3 spot. I think if you know I did that, I may flip that. I'm interested to see how Manziel handles the sophomore slump that some people get into. I guess you could say not necessarily that he will, but we'll see how that goes. Honestly, the biggest surprise on 1 through 7 to me is Arkansas at 7.
See, I'm not surprised by that, and the reason being, it's not that Arkansas doesn't have capable players on that roster that Brett Bielema and company have inherited over there. But I think, in my mind, it's more about what Brett Bielema wants to do with this Arkansas football program, and that is he wants to pound that football down your throat. I think the question mark at Arkansas right now is whether or not they have that type personnel in place already.
Right. Anytime you get a new coach, especially a new scheme, there is that transition of getting your players in there. Somewhere where that's not going to happen is Auburn. Auburn's got a new coach, and their players are already in place there. Auburn could be a scary team in the SEC West this season.
Well, you look at somebody like Gus Malzahn that's already, in his own sense, led that team to a national championship. You know, a lot of Tiger fans will sit here and tell you that it was because of Gus Malzahn that they won a national title. So I know there's a lot of excitement in Auburn, and the fact is that, like Webb said, the scheme is already there. They love that no-huddle offense, much like Ole Miss runs, and it seems to be that Gus Malzahn and Hugh Freeze at one time, and I guess they still do, have a friendship, and they share some secrets, but something tells me they won't be sharing many secrets now.
I got to tell you guys, if I'd picked this team, this SEC West, I would have picked it in the same exact order. I cannot argue with the way this came out.
And you know what's amazing to me, David, is the fact that I think Ole Miss is going to have a really good football team next year, and yet they're going to finish fourth in the SEC West. That just shows how strong of a conference and how strong a division the Rebels play in.
Yeah, and that's not writing off Ole Miss as a fourth-place team. It's not saying they're going to finish first or second or third either. But I think that's a good spot for this program. I think it's a fair assessment for where they are heading into this season and considering what they accomplished last year. I think if this coaching staff would have had their ways, they would have been picked 6th or 7th to kind of temper the expectations, so to speak. And don't be surprised if it's not a somewhat tough start with a super strong finish when you look at the schedule Ole Miss is facing. As you go to Vanderbilt on a Thursday night. To me, and I know there are a lot of people who do not think this way, but to me, that is the tone setter for the entire season. Listen, you don't want to get on a plane and fly to Austin, Texas and be 1-1 and your victory be against Southeast Missouri and have already lost on the road to Vanderbilt. There's a psychological element to to how a season goes. And winning at Vandy on that opening Thursday night, to me, it's the MVP of the psychological synopsis that Ole Miss faces this year. It is the most important football game.
And we talk a lot about momentum. And if you go to Vanderbilt on that Thursday night, all your momentum is taken away if you lose. But if you win, you build that momentum. And like you said, then there's Texas, and then there's Alabama after that. I mean, you're talking about a tough stretch of the first 6 ball games.
Well, let's be honest, too. There are 2 programs in the SEC right now that have kind of had the label up-and-comers placed on them. It's Ole Miss and Vanderbilt.
Right.
The job James Franklin has done in Nashville, the job Hugh Freeze did in his first year in Oxford. And is this a separation game? By George, I think it is.
Absolutely. When I look at the SEC, especially the SEC West, you know what Bama brings to the table. A&M's right there. They beat Bama last year. They have the potential with Manziel returning to do great things. LSU's LSU. We know Ole Miss where they are, up and coming. Arkansas is looking to change things around. Auburn's got a new coach. Where does State fit in? Where do they go in 2013?
That's an interesting question, because when you look at them from a personnel standpoint, I'm not so sure I would feel warm and fuzzy about what they have returning. That being said, though, last year was looked upon as a disappointing year in Starkville, primarily because they lost that season-ending game to Ole Miss, but still a bowl season for the Bulldogs. And, when you look back over what they've done in Dan Mullen's era, they're a program that's winning consistently right now.
Right.
So will they be able to do it this year? I think they certainly have an opportunity to win 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, when I check out and I look at Mississippi State, I think, they've had pretty good offenses lately, but the last couple of seasons, I feel like it's been their defense that has really won the majority of the games for them. And they took a hit, after this year. They took a hit and they lost some pretty good defensive players that made some good plays. With Dan Mullen, they seem, like you said, David, to win 6 games a year. He is a pretty good coach, and I think that they'll be bowl eligible again this year. Needless to say, I think 6 wins would be pretty good for them.
Yeah, I think so too. And a big thing for them, much like Ole Miss, week 1 for Mississippi State will be a very telling thing for them, with them opening the season against a team that could, and if they get the opportunity to, will put 60 points up on them if they can, in Oklahoma State.
Yeah, 1 through 7, SEC West. It wouldn't be an earth-shattering moment if anybody beat anybody in this league,
never.
Just as it is every single year. But that's how it shapes up this year. Your Ole Miss Rebels, preseason picked to finish 4th inside the SEC West. I'll say this much: go back to a year and a half ago, and to think that Ole Miss would be in a spot to be picked 4th preseason inside the SEC West, and I think it says a whole lot about the job Hugh Freeze has done in the very short time he's been in Oxford.
Yeah, the 4th spot is, you look, if 2 years ago, if you would have told me Ole Miss would have been the 4th spot, hanging around there ahead of Mississippi State, ahead of Arkansas, and knocking at the door LSU, I might would have said you're crazy after kind of the downfall of Ole Miss football. Hugh Freeze has done an incredible job, and he always talks about getting out of the wilderness. Well, he's slowly getting this team out of the wilderness and really building a program here.
Yeah. Before we move on, one other thing I want to throw out there: SEC Media Days, this being thrown around by some national media. Ole Miss is a cool place to be now. Ole Miss is now the Oregon, if you will, of the Southeastern Conference. Do you guys buy into that? What do you think of that thought that's being perpetrated by the national media?
Well, I think it all goes around the Kimdichie, Tunsil, Treadwell deal. Kimdichie had the tie. I don't think it's so much I don't know what to think of it. I don't necessarily agree with it. There is something special about Ole Miss, and the fact that they got some big-time recruits to come in this year, that played up a little bit more, but I don't necessarily think that it being the cool place to be had much to do with it.
And see, I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Webb, and the fact that I see Ole Miss as, and that's kind of what Coach Freeze and them are trying to do. Hey, this is a new era of Ole Miss football. They brought in an up-tempo offense, much like Oregon. You've seen a little bit alternation of the uniforms or bringing back some old uniform changes. I feel like they are trying to make Ole Miss look like a cool place to be and really kind of trying to change the perception and win more football games.
Well, I know in the world of recruiting now, that Ole Miss offer is special to kids from coast to coast now. They love to report that offer. That's considered a big time offer now. It is a trendy offer. It's a fashionable offer, and I can see a little bit of perhaps Ole Miss being the Oregon, if you will, of the SEC, and certainly the wide open offense Hugh Freeze runs adds to that persona.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, when you're able to go, 5 or 6 plays in a minute and a half, and you're an offensive player, you're a wide receiver, who wouldn't want to go to an offense like Ole Miss where you can touch the ball 6, 7, 8, 9 times in a ball game?
Final camp of the summer season set for Friday, July 19th at Ole Miss, and some pretty big time names coming in for this camp as the Rebels want to get one last look-see at some of the prospects out there that have Ole Miss offers or are battling for Ole Miss offers right now. Guys, this camp tomorrow setting up to be a pretty talent-filled event.
Yeah, when I look at some of the guys that are coming to this camp, obviously not all of them will be participating. Some will be viewing campus, viewing the indoor practice facility. But what's amazed me is the fact that in years past, Ole Miss has struggled to get some of these guys to these camps, and now some of the biggest names in high school football continue.
But again, does that not go back to the quote unquote cool identity? The way the Ole Miss football program has been marketed out there, wanting to these kids want to come to camp. They want to get them here, and it's been said at Ole Miss forever and ever. If you get them on campus, if you get them to Oxford, they'll realize what a special place that Ole Miss is, and you're starting to see some of the fruitions of that.
Yeah, I was talking to Ronald Walker from Callaway the other day, and he told me that when he was at the opening, he said everybody was asking him, so what about Ole Miss? Do I need to check Ole Miss out? I think I want to check Ole Miss out because I'm hearing so many good things, and that's what you're talking about, Dave.
Absolutely, and these recruits, their time is so precious in the summer. I mean, man, they try to pack in so much stuff and go to so many different places and see as many things as possible because they've got a football season to play in the fall. I mean, it's tough to go, get around as much. And when you can get a good combination of committed players and big prospects, uncommitted prospects in for a camp like this weekend, I think it's very big for Ole Miss.
And that's a great point that you bring up. It's very taxing on their time because, look, every one of these prospects, and I'm getting a feel of it with my son this summer, so I'm getting to see the other side of it. Every one of these prospects, well, they have obligations at their high school in terms of workouts that they have to do and certain amount of workouts that they have to be at. Also, the financial rigors of going to all of these camps. What a lot of people don't understand, and it's really interesting, is that, look, you get one trip to a school that's on that school's dime, and that's your official visit during your senior year. When you go to these camps, you pay camp fees, you pay to get there, you pay to eat, you pay for the hotel room, and it gets awfully expensive on these recruits and their families.
A lot of times you've heard us all say that if they come to camp, Ole Miss has a shot at them. And that's so true because of what you just said, David, that they are coming on their own dime, that they are having to pay for their own meals while they come here, and they're taking travel sometimes across the country. So whenever they do come to a camp just to visit or to camp and try out, it shows that they're very interested in the school.
All right.
I agree. And like you said, getting them here is such a big deal. I think that I don't know. I think that especially when they're paying their own way, you got a shot, absolutely. And then when you can get them to come back for that official, such a big deal because, I mean, you think about the January 25th weekend of this past recruiting season. You had guys that had been to campus before, but, for camps and things like that, coming back for their official visit. We had commits coming immediately after that. These camps are absolutely huge. It's hard to explain how big they actually are.
All right, some of the top prospects expected to be in Oxford tomorrow. Charles Stanberry, a wide receiver out of Carver, Alabama High School, already an Ole Miss commit. I said wide receiver. Let me correct myself. Tight end is Charles Stanberry, bringing with him his best friend since childhood, linebacker Sean Hamilton, who is an Alabama commit, but told Rebels247 last month that, listen, Ole Miss was still very much in the mix for him. So Hamilton coming over for a visit tomorrow. Won't be his first time on campus. He came over with former Carver quarterback Jeremy Johnson last year. Quite a good bit. Of course, Johnson ends up going to Auburn. Other names, Andrew Williams, big defensive lineman out of Georgia. Nick Glass, his name, is on the list to attend camp tomorrow. Will Nick Glass be here? Webb, you've been talking to him a little bit. What do you think?
Nick is one of those guys that when I talk to him, I believe him when he says, yeah, I want to come. I'm really interested. I want to see what's going on. But, he's been telling me that all summer, and he hadn't made it yet. So if he comes, I think it's going to be huge for Ole Miss and bad for Georgia. If not,
and via social media, and we've kind of been getting two storylines with Glass.
Yeah.
We've been getting the story that's under the surface is that he's very interested in Ole Miss, and he is planning on coming. But when you look at Glass's social media, he's tweeted out that he shut it down. It's Georgia the entire way. He is a Georgia commitment, by the way. So we'll see. If Nick Glass is at the Ole Miss camp tomorrow, it will be a major story with reverberations that'll be felt all the way out to the Peach State, where they don't necessarily think very highly of Ole Miss right now, particularly after the Rebels stepped in and stole Laramie Tunsil at the last second.
Georgia, LSU, these big schools, Alabama. You said something a second ago, Red. If they can just get them to campus, that goes a long way. And the recruits understand that. The recruits understand it. The Ole Miss coaches understand it. We understand it. Georgia, LSU, Alabama do not understand that yet. They still have that whole flare of arrogance. Well, if a kid can go to either here or Ole Miss, they're going to choose LSU. They're going to choose Alabama, and that's just not the case anymore.
And you got to credit the Ole Miss coaching staff for that too, and the amount of relentless recruiting they were doing. You've heard the program of what Hugh Freeze has talked about, how he said he wanted to do it, the 12-month plan, and he got that from Coach Ed Orgeron. Well, there's one thing we know about Coach Ed Orgeron was that he was a relentless recruiter, and that's what Coach Freeze's staff's doing now.
A lot of Georgia fans still in dismay that Robert Kimdichie, the nation's #1 recruit, left the state of Georgia as well to join his brother at Ole Miss.
Yeah, there's a lot of Georgia fans that are upset about that. I mean, a guy that was within their state, right around the corner from their backyard, and he honestly never even truly gave Georgia a chance.
All right, others expected to attend tomorrow: Drew Richmond, the 2015 offensive lineman out of Memphis University School; Tyler Putman, Ole Miss commit, 2014 offensive lineman out of DeSoto Central; Alfred Dickens, one of our favorites out of Olive Branch High School. Alfred, Ole Miss commit, he'll be there. J.T. Gray. I want to stop here for just a second on J.T. Gray. J.T. Gray grew up in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Now, he lives in Coolidge, Arizona right now, plays at Coolidge High School, goes to the Southern Elite Combine last year in Oxford before he moved to Arizona, did not have a single offer. And then the week after the Southern Elite, he got his first offer. He has simply blown up out on the West Coast, folks. Pretty much everybody in the Pac-12, including USC and Oregon, have offered J.T. Gray. He has an Ole Miss offer. He has a Mississippi State offer. He told me yesterday if he chooses to come back to Mississippi to play his college football, which is very, very possible, he wants to play it at Ole Miss. So we'll see. But J.T. Gray will be out there. Tells me that the Rebel coaching staff wants to see him perform in man-on-man coverage. Well, we got a glimpse of him last week at the Southern Elite in man-on-man, and I think we felt the same way that Lane Kiffin and the USC coaching staff did when they saw him in man-on-man coverage. The guy's superb.
He is, and he's tremendous. He's a great player. He's a physical player. All right, you see his man-on-man coverage at the Combine, and it is good. It is what it is. But if you've seen Gray put on the plastic and hit people, he's a very physical player, and I think Ole Miss could do a lot of good with a player like Gray.
And he also owns a sub 4.4 40-yard dash time.
And that's what his athleticism is something that Coach Hugh Freeze and staff has really taken notice of. And what's amazing to me is just not only him, but some of these other recruits, how Ole Miss is recruiting athletes now more and more, and he fits that category.
Whitehaven High School linebacker Joshua McMillan also expected to be at the Ole Miss camp on Friday. Well, guys, we're going to have a full day of camp coverage for everyone tomorrow right here on Rebels 247. You won't want to miss that. We'll have a whole lot of video interviews and things of that nature. Who knows? Will there be a commitment come out of this camp for Ole Miss tomorrow? Possibly.
You just never know. We've seen last 7-on-7 is where Alfred Dickens committed to Ole Miss just last month, so you never know what can happen.
The day before, you had the Moore brothers commit. So
at a camp.
Yeah, absolutely. So it could happen.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Rebels 247 Round Table. For Brandon Redd, Webb Lewis, I'm David Johnson. Thank you for listening.